Okay, so in that case, I put it on record, and I can see my oh god, I've just got out of bed and just crawled into the office. So I really do look pretty crap. So, hi, Jason, how are you?
I'm all right, thank you. I love your punk hairstyle.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we'll forget the fact that we've actually got the recorder on, and if it goes tits up, we won't use it. So, but anyway, right, I am going to share my screen. Take you through. Feel free to stop, whatever, ask questions as we go. So I am going to take you through InLinks from the point of view of setting up a project from scratch. A lot's happened since you last played with the whole tool. So if I put in a website, would you like? Shall I put in yours? It's all right. I promise. Nothing to go.
Go ahead. We can use jasonbarnard.com because it's quite fun.
It's not going to be fun the way I do it.
Oh, right.
I'll just make it completely
well, the thing is, Jason Barnard talks about lots of things. It talks about kind of rock groups, albums,
okay,
Blue
cool.
Dogs, Yellow Koalas, TV series.
Well, that could be quite interesting because you've probably got some SEO stuff and entity stuff in there as well, and it'll start showing that you've got a split personality possibly. So,
yep, definitely.
Okay, so the first thing is the reason we have a select market when you set up a new project is that at various points we call Google's API, and of course you've got to choose which country you're going to call for Google's API to try and get the top 10 results. So I'm going to say that you're targeting. You could be targeting the French market. We at the moment we have English and French countries.
Yeah, UK is probably best.
But I'll hit the UK
because I don't have a French version of the site.
Right. Okay. Then also, normally I wouldn't bother bringing this in, but I'm going to bring in the top 20 pages, and we actually use at the moment SEMrush's API just to guess the 20 most important pages. We could use Bing's API or whatever, but
SEMrush probably won't come up with much then.
Well, we'll see. If it doesn't see 20 pages that it's seen in the SERPs, then they won't bring them in. But the reason I'm bringing it in there is it shows pretty pictures and shows the concept, and I can explain what's happening. So what we're doing right now is we're looking at the first 20 pages on your website. If there's 20 that SEMrush has got reported, and it's picking out, it's running a very aggressive natural language processing algorithm over it and picking out the underlying concepts. So as it's going, you can see 97 entities. You're talking about digital marketing, you're talking about video clips, you're talking about hip hop music, you're talking about songs, billboards, etc., public speaking as well. So you can see all the entities and things, and the entities are much broader than Google's entities. So Google, as you know, I'm not touching you to suck eggs or anything, but Google's very good at spotting brands and locations and people and things that start with a capital letter. Not so good at understanding concepts like songs or rock music or whatever, at least not in its NLP API. So as it's pulling in the content, 113 topics, we're now mapping and creating a knowledge graph of your website or of the first 20 pages of your website. So we've pulled in 20 pages. SEMrush's got another 88 in there, which we could add, but I'm not going to do that. So we've pulled in this, and now it's going to start working out some other bits and pieces as well. But let's just show you your graph. So this is the knowledge graph of Jason Barnard. We actually have got a graphical version of it, so you could get to this and if you want, you can export a picture of your graph. It's actually a sort of a URL, a flat URL that you can share with people. But from here, you can actually, this is interactive. You can click on things and start associating topics with pages. But it's much easier to do it from this layout. So these are the main things that your site is talking about. So we've seen those 20 pages are talking about television programs 7 times, marketing 6 times, characters, brackets, arts 5 times. So these things are labels really. So if you want to see which entity we're referring to, every single one of these will ultimately refer back to a Wikipedia URL. So when we see character, we're talking specifically about a fictional character, sometimes known, etc. There's other related topics that are semantically close. Here's a bunch of them. Here's some questions that are related to the concept of character, as in this particular thing. Sometimes we get these wrong, so we've got to report an error option. That's not the best place to use it, but so the idea here is that these are all your different topics, and at the moment, you're not necessarily, if you improved your internal linking, we can see that we would improve if we had a page that was the landing page for television program, then we would be able to potentially link other mentions of television programs through to the television program page. So let's try and associate one by having a look at the pages where we've picked up the concept of television program. And I can't see one that I can't see one that is specifically about television program. So you could create a brief saying, right, somebody needs to.
That is actually interesting because there is one. So it means I've done it badly.
Right, those 20 pages that we came up with. So we can find it. So what we can do is we can add the URL in here. Sorry, I just did that wrong. So when we associate, so we can either select the URL, so take any URL that you've got on your website and put it in as a television program URL, or you could create a brief and say, right, I need to remember to go and write an article on television programs. See what I mean? But I'm going to, for now, because we've sort of just pulled in a free account, I'm just going to go and find a page that we can associate. So let's take this one. Obviously, we can relate to the concept of this digital marketing page. Yep.
Okay.
So I'll do that so that we've got it. So we've made an association here. We can then make another association with music if we've got one around here. I'll link that to your blues page. So we've made a few associations here. So the idea here, this is probably the most important part of our system, in that there's a human in the loop that's got to decide which page is the most important page for topic associations. So you can either do it from this knowledge graph, or you can do it from the project page itself. So the project page itself is listing your 20 pages. And sorry, I'm just going to close thread off here. Hang on, close, quit. So that.
So you're basically saying one page has to be the focus, or what each entity needs a focus page.
Yes. Yes, there's ways around. And the reason that you do that is because it starts to then allow us to build internal links. So if you imagine you were the only website on the whole internet, and somebody typed in marketing or digital marketing, you'd still have to have one page that comes to the top of the list. So it helps to think about making your site associate one page with one entity. It can be with more than one entity, but it makes sense to have one entity as the main, one page as the main topic for a given entity. So we've made this page about marketing, and that means that we can firstly create schemas straight away. So we now have read the page already anyway, so we know that this is primarily about marketing. And so what we've done is used same as and linked through to the marketing page on Wikipedia. Yeah. We've also identified it as being also about promotion marketing and digital marketing, which are very semantically similar concepts. So we've actually said it's about three things that are very semantically close. It also mentions links to the Wikipedia article for consultant, meeting, websites, Google, goodness knows what else in here as well. But these mentions are really subservient to the main about features. So what we're trying to do is take Google's implicit understanding of the meaning of a page and making it explicit in the schema.
Okay, so just a question that I saw organizations, I mentioned Searchmetrics and Trustpilot, but for example, SEMrush, they had a Wikipedia page and it's in there.
Yeah.
However, it's been deleted. So presumably that will not be found or mentioned if it's not.
That's right. So from our perspective, then you would not be able to say this page is about SEMrush per se. Now you can override this. So what you can do is in our links tab, it'll list all the links that we've created for you. By the way, all these links are live as soon as this code is on the page. So so you don't need to. It's great. It's good if you're doing it with clients. You just got to get one line of code in the footer of their website, and then all the link management and all the schema can be done directly from here. So in the schema tabs, and you've got these override buttons as well that you can just say, right, switch off all the links or switch off all the schema whilst we sort something out. So the schema button here will allow you to look at all the schema here. And on the digital marketing page here, you could say, right, I really do want to link to something that I think is an entity. So because you've got your CaliCube kind of database of different data sources and stuff, you may take a different view to the one I would take. So InLinks will only link to Wikipedia articles. But if you really, really, really wanted to, and you think that it's going to work, and you might, you could say, right, I want to add a new about, and this is actually an organization place or whatever. So it's an organization if it was SEMrush.
CaliCube, we'd link to CaliCube because it's an organization that doesn't have a Wikipedia page.
Okay. Well, I will do that, but ultimately you've got to decide what URL you're going to put in here.
Wikidata, yeah.
You want to put in a Wikidata URL for CaliCube. Okay, let's go for that. Okay.
Okay.
This is how I find it. So if we go now, this is going off my normal demo. For anybody else out there, this is one other expert coming in and doing it and using it.
No, I mean it is the problem with Wikipedia is you have the notability necessity, which means that a lot of entities don't get listed. True. Whereas in Wikidata, the bar for being notable is much lower.
Yeah. Okay.
So you can actually get your entity to stick in Wikidata much more easily than you can in Wikipedia.
Okay, done. Refresh page to see changes. So here we go. So now the schema now.
Right. Okay. Beautiful.
It's added that in as well. So and you can also delete these as well. So basically, ultimately, the control is yours. But our AI won't use Wikidata; it'll only use Wikipedia. But if you want to manually add that in, then you're done. So now your project for the digital marketing page, the schema now has also the link to the Wikidata page as well. Okay. So and because you've got a database of all the other places that you can go to as well, then you could be quite interesting from that perspective. So now we've also created, now that we know that this page is about marketing, the next thing is we can create a whole bunch of other links on the website that are linking through. Now these happen to be all linking through with exactly the same anchor text, but because we've looked at it through a natural language processing algorithm, that's not always the case at all. It could be snippets of text, it could be variations, it could be synonyms, but basically where you've talked about marketing on the economics page, then we've linked through in the hypertext. So I can show you how that is, because if I click on these pages, it'll show you the text that we crawled. And you can see that we have now dotted the word marketing here, which is the link that we've got in your text. And again, that would be, if you had the code on the site and it was live, that would be injected straight into the page through JavaScript. So Google is quite happily crawling those links without any problem these days, because of course they're now rendering the content. If you've got any links of your own, for example, this one down at the bottom, that's got a solid line underneath. So you can see the difference between the ones we've created and the ones you've created. And then again, in the links tab, you can also edit those as well. So you can have a look at those. And if you think that you need to vary the anchor text, for example, then fine. You can click on any one of these, have a look at the link. Where do we do it? Here you can say, right, actually I've called it marketing, and really frankly I want to make this digital marketing, so you want to perhaps change that. Oops, I think that's done it. Let's find out. And then it's changed the link from actually changed it to digital. It's
from digital marketing to digital, yeah.
So it's changed to digital, but now it's gone and changed it to manual link. So now I am not linking an entity as we've seen it. You've overridden that, so we don't recommend doing that. But
because the more I do that, the further away I get from your initial analysis, and you no longer have control.
That's right, and I'm not saying that our analysis is 100% always correct, but at the same time, once you start changing our parameters, we'll stop guessing. We've been outsmarted by the human, or the human didn't agree with the smarts.
But isn't it? I mean, a factor of that is kind of what I tell my clients about WordPress is stick to the core, stick to the way it initially functions, because further down the line, when it upgrades and updates, you're going to create yourself more problems than you solved.
I don't think it's a good idea. I mean, I think if you don't like it, delete the internal link, and that's fine. So you can delete the links here as well with a click as well. So if you didn't like our thing, just take it off. But leaving it as manual link is storing up problems for the future. You might as well go.
And if you really, you might as well go in your back office and change the link and put it yourself.
Exactly. It's not really allowing our systems to do the things they're supposed to do. So, so that's the first function of it, and it's come along quite a way since you looked at it before. In that now you can quite easily, once you've made these associations, the number of links that start getting generated can be quite significant. Typically. With a 20 page website, when you've sort of made the associations on the main landing pages, you'll end up with, probably twice as many links as you have pages. So generally 2 to 3 links on a page that it's found. It depends on how you've written your content. So we created schema, and particularly about schema mentions, and optimized an internal link profile that would have taken for large sites, ages, and also wouldn't have been based around an entity-based approach, which the internal linking I don't think is a thing that WordLift does, but the schema I'm sure they do. The second thing that we do is an audit system. So we can take this page and say, right, Jason, are you ready for this? Potentially public. I'm going to audit this around the phrase digital marketing. So you can then say, right, I want to have a look at this page and see what we can do to make this content more aligned with the concept of digital marketing that Google understands. So what this is doing now is it's using Google's API for UK, because that's where we set the project up. It's taken the top 10 results for the phrase digital marketing. It's then running our natural language processing algorithm over that content, turning that into a knowledge graph of the top 10 results. And the reason we do that is we can then compare your content and the knowledge graph on your content page, on your page for digital marketing, with the content that Google already thinks is the best for the phrase digital marketing, and show your gaps, basically. So it's going to start showing you all the ideas and entities and concepts that your competitors are talking about and you're not. It's also going to be able to generate lots of questions that people are asking around the concept of digital marketing, and then it's going to come up with an editor to allow you to add or change the brief, if you like. So we've given you a terrible score. Sorry, mate. I'm sorry. The reason is that and I'm not suggesting that this is anything that SEO should write home about, but you've only got 440 words on that page. Your competitors have got 2,500 plus words on there. Now, I'm not saying that the number of words is important, but what is interesting, and the reason that e-commerce sites find it very, very hard, is that it takes words to describe the concept within natural language processing. So the more words you have on a page, the richer the content, the easier it is to understand the content. So, so now we can see the concepts that are here. So looking at the 10 results, the ones in green are ones that you've talked about, and the ones in blue are the ones that you haven't. And the length of the line is how many of your competitors are talking about them. So digital marketing, we have 2 different concepts for digital marketing. And on both of them, you and all 10 of your competitors are talking about them. So we can drill in here and see what we mean by digital marketing with a small d and a and we have got the concept of marketing, and that's a Wikipedia page for marketing. And we've also got the concept of digital marketing independently. So Wikipedia has 2 different pages around the concept of marketing. We've picked up that you're talking about both of those, and we think that they're distinct. And again, we've got sort of other things around the concept of digital marketing as well. So you can sort of get a pretty good idea of what's happening. And we also got these, I'll come on to these questions much more in a second, because there's a lot of them, and it's pretty cool. What we have also noticed here is that you're not particularly talking about social media within the concept of digital marketing, or if you have, we've not picked it up. So we can just check and make sure that we understand the right meaning of social media. And what we can start doing here is say, yes, okay, it's not in there. Right. Let me add that to my brief so that next time I'm looking at my content, I remember to talk about social media in there. So, some of these are going to be wrong. It may be that you don't actually want to talk about customers. Probably you do, but
I probably do. Yeah.
Some of these, okay, industries. Maybe industries is irrelevant. These
honestly, that's a very good list. I mean,
it's not bad, is it? But you will find some things that are incorrect. So engine is an interesting one you should always check. Have we picked up combustion engine or a search engine? So we've picked up the concept of, we've got an error in the system. So that should not have picked up engine. So this button for report an error is a really useful button for us. So people pressing it is a good idea because it means that our system can then start to learn, basically. So that's no guarantee that we'll change the system, but I see this. I see that particular error in our knowledge graph more than once. So I press it every time, and we'll get it sorted at some point in there. So we can basically go in and say, right, I want to talk more about customers, or and so we can just put those in, and there's quicker as well. If we want to say, right, I understand what techniques are, I want to talk about learning. Then I can just press them here as well. The dotted lines are a little bit more complicated to understand. Basically, it means you're fine. You have talked about the concept of course. It's just that we've seen different competitors talk about, we've related the concept of course to different Wikipedia articles for different competitors. So whilst you're there, there's probably more than one course concept in there that we've talked about. So it means that we've not been able to do this last number here of how many times you've talked about, your competitors have talked about it. So just to go and explain these lines, with digital marketing, on average, your competitors are talking about it 11 times. At the low end, they're talking about it twice. Top end, 23. You're talking about it 24 times. So we've got okay. And the window cleaners arrived. Also, we're showing where Google has picked up a topic, and Google doesn't pick up as many of the concepts as you might think. So we also run Google's natural language processing algorithm over the same content, and over your content anyway, and over theirs. So these are the main these are the top 10 results for the phrase digital marketing right now, and so we can see the main topics that we've picked up, and the ones in dirty brown color are the ones that are also detected by Google. So you can see here what I mean by Google is picking up things with the capital letter, for want of a better phrase. Europe, Open University, IAB, Google, and LinkedIn. It's not really picked up the concept of digital marketing. It's not picked up digital marketing, Google Master, whatever. So that's not to say that Google doesn't understand those particularly, but it is saying that Google's NLP API is not picking up those concepts and displaying them back, which I find kind of interesting. So we can also from here use this to get ideas for improving our content as well. So we could say, yeah, I need a section on fundamentals. I'm going to copy out of Learn with Google, or so we can it'll just pick out the headlines, and just if you see there's things that you'd like to think about when you're improving your content, that you can press the add button here.
Well, with a 1% SEO score, I can definitely improve my content.
Yeah. That'll go much higher as soon as you've pressed a few buttons anyway, because I think that's probably us, messing.
I think you're right. I mean, it comes back to what you were saying earlier, is that the page needs to deal with one entity, one topic, and that page is actually a page that describes my four different jobs in life. So it actually talks about economics degree, blue dog, yellow koala, music group, and digital marketing. So I've got this problem.
Yeah, and you're doing that all in 446 words. So So
but Mark Twain did say if I'd had more time, I would have written less.
Well, that's very true. That's very true.
But sorry, but you are right that there aren't enough words to actually explain all these different concepts, and the page is fragmented.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I think
in terms of pleasing Google, it's a rubbish page. In terms of presenting my life in a succinct manner to people who are looking for me, it's a great page. But you guys have really picked up on what is wrong with the page if I were to aim that page at digital marketing.
I mean, because it's an SEO tool. So yeah, your page currently is saying somebody already knows about Jason Barnard and now wants to, get some underlying, evidence that Jason Barnard knows something. Whereas what we're trying to do is, say digital marketing is not a keyword. It is a concept that is semantically close to all of these different concepts. And in fact, it's these concepts. These are the main concepts that and
it's a very good list.
So this should be a very good list. This is generally quite a good list. This isn't your content. This is the list of topics and keyword concepts that we think are important. We've also got a list of questions. So our questions thing, we were thinking of launching this as a separate tool because we think this is better than Answer the Public. But this is pulling out huge numbers of questions that people are asking around different kind of concepts around digital marketing. So you can either just scroll down here and say, right, I want to answer that question for somebody. So you can just add those questions in, or you can drill down because there's so many. Coventry University has come in there, by the way, because coventry.ac.uk ranked in the top 10 for the phrase. So so you might, by the way, if I just go back here, so if I go to coventry.ac.uk, you might decide that that they shouldn't have ranked, in which case you can change the URL. So what you're doing there is changing the seed set, the knowledge graph that we're building. So that'll get rid of words like concepts like study and advice and communicate and etc. and take all those out, and then the one you put in its place, it'll rewrite the knowledge graph that we're comparing against. So that will change some things on here, so you can you don't have to go with the pre-populated list. But on the questions here, because there's so many of them, you could drill down and say, right, actually, I haven't talked about social media. I remember I needed to talk about that. Let's go and find out some questions based around social media. So that'll dive in to all the questions that we've seen around the concept of social media, so that you can choose a couple of those concepts as well to put into your content brief. Now, if you were starting from scratch, we have this content structure as well. So this assumes that you haven't got any content, or you want to start again, because you're only 1% and you want to start again, or because you haven't got a page at all, then this is suggesting a format to putting in a big piece of content. So it's trying to take the right ideas, and some people find this really helpful, some not so much, but it's there for people. And then finally, I don't think this is as strong as WordLift's sort of WordPress plugin, but it's still a lot better than it used to be. We now have got a sandbox for you to change your content and update your content in a safe environment. So this is the content that we read. This was your 446 words that we had in there. And then underneath that, we've got the overview of the brief. So your main metrics that we had when we crawled it. Your competitors are in there, so you've got them so you can see. And then every time I pressed add along the way, with social media and customers and stuff like that, it's mentioned, it's put these in here. So now you've got to hand the questions and stuff that that went through your brain as you were going through the rest of the content brief. So you've got the ideas to hand, so you can update your content. Also on the right hand side here, we've got the main missing topics as well, so you can always jump in there as well and say, okay, advertising, I need to pull in a bit of information about advertising. And again, you can either get inspiration from the questions or from the Wikipedia summary or whatever it may be. So here is basically a place to start editing and adding concepts to try and improve your content. So whilst I wouldn't leave it with just pasting these things on the bottom, you could then say, Rob, we've now added the concepts like fundamentals of digital marketing and social media and stuff. So if you actually turn that into proper language rather than do what I'm about to do, you could then hopefully re-update your analysis and hopefully get a better score than 1%. So it's now updating again. Please wait. Okay. And now we've added these concepts in there, 44%, because we've got these top ideas mentioned
Right.
and talked about in there a little bit more. Your readabilities has probably gone down because I've just added some junk, but anyway. What also has happened here is that the editor was not a live URL. Unlike the links and the schema, which are injected live, the text editor we figured was pretty scary to change your content straight from our system. So this has now changed from what used to say live URL because it was analyzing the data against the live URL to analyzing against the text editor. So until you update that back to the live URL, it'll carry on assuming that all comparisons are against the text editor.
And you update using the JavaScript?
Well, potentially we could, but the thing is, it's and I think we're more likely to, if we did that, we would be completely potentially changing. A lot of this is done on the fly, and people are in draft and they're messing around and stuff. So if you want to do that, what I would do is just stick with the live URL and then update in WordPress.
Okay. No, I'm just saying what you're saying is I can't actually update it from here. I have to go in, copy paste all the stuff into
you would in the end have to. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay. No, which is fine.
Yeah. So you also here, if you've got clients and stuff, one of the things you can do here is you can use this export button, which actually isn't an export button. It's actually, it's a URL that is a read-only version of your content of this report. So they don't have to log in. You could just send them this link and say, you know what, Jason, I think we need to spend a couple of hours improving the content on this page. It's got a score of 44%. Here's why. I can talk it through if you like, and they can go in and see this in read form and see the content that we're reading, but they can't edit any of it. They don't have to log in, but you can basically use that as a sales pitch, if you like, to say, you know, this content could do with some improving, and here's why it could do with some improving. You haven't talked about learning, you haven't talked about advertising, you haven't talked about jobs and stuff. Mm-hmm. So it's useful there. The readability score is Flesch-Kincaid readability test, which is basically an open source algorithm that's been around for donkey's years that tries to say what grade school leaver could understand the content, basically. So the reason that it's important, I mean, I'm really sad because people, you know, we're trying to make this easy to read, which is dumbing down the internet. And as you know, I'm a bit of a, I don't know, call me an academic snob or something like that. But I don't like the idea that we're dumbing down the internet because we're getting it to the lowest common denominator. But unfortunately, machine understanding is a bit weak at the moment, and so the easier it is for a human being to read, the easier it is for a machine to understand as well. And then this last one here is we've got user intent and stuff as well. So we've taken some kind of concepts and we've taken this out of beta. Okay, that's interesting. So we've got things like, you know, whether this phrase digital marketing, whether the main results coming back are informational, transactional, answering questions or branded. So you've got some kind of, so we think that the results are predominantly informational in nature. So it's not coming back with e-commerce or stuff. And then also we've got some categories of data as well. So we've categorized all of our entities into different areas. And this last one here, search engine understanding, is a new thing that we've come out with, really. And ultimately that is the number of topics that we see with our NLP divided by, the number of topics that Google brings back in its NLP divided by the number of topics that we bring back in our NLP, which will always be higher because we'll always pick up Google's ones. So 20% is around about typical, and we're running reports every week on the different industry sectors to see how much Google is missing in its NLP understandings. So, makes sense so far?
Yep, makes perfect sense so far. Very neat and tidy and easy to understand.
It's easy to understand when you go through it. It's a mountain to jump up when we don't explain it properly on launch. So, you know, right, okay. So if I now go back to the project now that we've started editing this, you could assign this to somebody else. So you could say you can set up new writers. So I'll set up. I'll say, right, okay, Fred. I'm going to, please will you by next week I'll just put that in there. But you could put any message saying, please update this and get it better, please. Make this, So it's a kind of a workflow system, so that you then see a green icon here, which means this particular page has been assigned. They then have their own login, and they can see just the pages that are assigned to them, whether it's by one customer or lots of users of InLinks. They can just get the pages that are assigned to them. So that's designed for content writers who generally don't have any money, certainly don't want to, pay for InLinks to help improve all of the Daily Mail's content or whatever. So they can then just be receiving instructions, and then they've got a page here. They can add some comments, if they want as they go, so you can get some stuff. When this goes over time, it goes red, and this icon goes red. And then when either of you think the job's done, you can press completed, and then the icon goes to a filing cabinet, which means somebody's got to go and put that content back on the website.
Right. Okay.
So that is, in a nutshell, most of the things that we do. There's one other thing that we've got, which is slightly to one side. We've got this system called Trends, and we've found a way to try and work out the interest in any different concepts. So I track these ideas. Well, not these ones. That's from previous demos, so I'll untrack those. Excuse me. Okay.
Garage door.
I do a lot of these demos, So I track things like marketing communications, hyperlinks, etc. But we have different categories, so you're in the marketing category, which happens to be the free one anyway, and we make that free so that Google has plenty of stuff to crawl on our website, and so we're tracking around about 870 odd topics within the concept of marketing, and the idea here is that it's kind of like Google Trends on steroids, in that we're finding the concepts that are currently increasing in popularity. So we have picked up SEMrush as a concept, by the way. As an entity. So
because they did have the Wikipedia page, and it did show the Wikipedia page. But what I'm now wondering is, when their Wikipedia page got deleted, at what point does your system lose track of it?
I don't know. It may not. We may have carried on keeping it as an entity within our knowledge graph. So our knowledge graph is independent. So I don't know if I got a link to the Wikipedia. So pass. Okay, so that's I don't know the answer to that. I mean, obviously we've kept it anyway.
It obviously it exists in your system. Sorry, it was that curiosity of Wikipedia, as you rightly said, is a pretty brittle situation for new entities getting into it.
I suspect if you drill down and into it, and if you said, right, if you drill down into it in our audit tool, then eventually we would have linked to the live Wikipedia URL, and it would have said this page no longer exists, effectively. So, but it's still in our data. We're still seeing it, and actually, I think they're probably maybe just go to Wikipedia here. So, there you go. They're back. They're there. So
Google's index is actually very slow to update when pages get deleted from Wikipedia.
No, what we've got, actually, we don't have an article with this name, but it has got. So it's got it's still got the URL.
Right.
And it's got a disambiguation page, effectively saying, right, okay, it's not here. So it's left something there. Which obviously we're not going to get much context around, but that's what's happened.
But if you've already drawn the context in from Wikipedia, it's in your own system, that doesn't matter anymore.
Probably not.
Redirect it to another page.
Yeah.
Which one was it? I think the Barking Dogs, which was the rock group, that page got deleted, and it got redirected to some guy called Robert Greene, because he wrote a book that had the Barking Dogs in it,
okay.
Which is completely ridiculous and very stupid. But
I mean, yeah. So that's purely out of curiosity on my part, rather than a real meaning.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I think our system should update over time, but you know, anyway. Truth of the matter is, we found these things growing. So if I sit there and say, right, Google Ads seems to be growing, we can click on it and see what's happening. The ones that are really interesting. So this is not.
Oh, there was news about Google Ads in the middle of August.
There was something about. They've taken away the keyword data for smaller terms, I think. So
that was it. There you go. So they got loads and loads of exposure all of a sudden. That's beautiful. Yeah.
Negative exposure, but nevertheless, people are talking about it. So the thing that's interesting is, I mean, we've got this data day by day and the volume here, and
people stop talking about it at the weekend.
Well, it comes out and then it goes back down again. This happens a lot.
No, sorry, what I mean is the weekend seem to be those troughs each time. So it's basically people do take their weekends off, which is lovely to hear.
It's nice to hear, isn't it? It's not always the case. I suspect if you go something more more sort of weekendish, like DIY, you know, it might be exactly the
other
opposite.
way around. Brilliant, yeah.
So this is not showing clicks, or it's not showing ranking data. It's just interest in a concept, and at the moment it's interested in a concept by language. So this is actually all around the world. So it could be that something in New Zealand has affected this data, particularly on smaller entities and things. But you can then find out what questions we've seen related to the concept of Google Ads. And you can also see related topics as well here. So what this is quite useful for is trying to surface what you should write about next. The really interesting ones are ones where it goes up because there's been a news report, comes down a bit, but the line afterwards has changed, because it means you've changed the needle. And that's really powerful, because that means that there's probably a lot more, you know, demand for a product than there was before, and probably not any content to meet it, so not as much. So so you can hear that button will just go to Google News to find the underlying reason for that spike, because, you know, we're not assuming we know. That's coming out of Wikipedia, and then from here, if you wanted to, you can just say, right, I need to write some new content for the UK market around the concept of Google Ads. I haven't got a page here to compare against, so just write it out from scratch. And then that will do exactly the same thing as auditing your page against things. It will go back, build a knowledge graph of the top 10 web pages for the phrase Google Ads, show you all the entities and things that are there. But because we've got nothing to compare it against, it will just give you a blank Sandbox editor to start writing content. And then from there, you can then basically write some content that hopefully one day will rank for the phrase Google Ads. I'm not saying you're going to get that straight out of the box. We're not we're not you know, InLinks isn't providing you with the backlinks required to you know, and all the other bits and pieces. But so you got the same thing, but now everything's in blue because you haven't written any content yet, basically. So there you go.
Right. Okay.
That is InLinks, mate.
Lovely, brilliant stuff.
How does it compare? I'm gonna stop the recording now. So